Alright guys, Daniel Clayman here. I wanted to record a video specifically about analyzing a build-to-rent duplex. Alright, this is super important. I think it's going to be fairly eye-opening. I did a longer content video called How to Develop a Build-to-Rent Duplex, where I went deep into how to price land, do financial feasibility, and even line up financing. This is meant to be a shorter video where we're going to dive right into doing financial analysis on build to rent duplexes, and you can apply this to build to rent anything for that matter. So really quick, my name is Daniel Clayman. I live in Richmond, Virginia. I build real estate for a living. I build software for real estate investors, and the rest of the time I just hang out with my family, including my 3 amazing, ridiculous children that you see here. That's it. That's my bio. So I love building duplexes because you can build them by residential building code, which means that you don't pay as much money to build them as you do to build apartments. They are much more efficient though than single family rentals. My duplexes are typically up and down. Apartment downstairs, apartment upstairs. We stack the rental units. I don't do side by sides. It is way more efficient because I need less land. I only need 1 HVAC zone per apartment, per floor. I need less stairs. So some people, when they think of duplexes, they think of side-by-side duplexes. That's great. You're welcome to build those. What I like to build is stacked up and down duplexes. And that allows me to amortize the cost of my utilities, foundation, walls, roof, over 2 apartments instead of 1 single family home. So I like to use this as an example. In my market, if I build a single family home that's 2,000 square feet, it's going to rent for $2,300 to $2,400 a month. Or I can build the same exact size structure, split it into 2 apartments, and my rent roll is going to be approaching $37, $38, maybe even $3,900 a month. It works way better than single family rentals. And they are typically easy to lease because they feel just like single family rentals. You don't have a ton of neighbors on either side, and so we lease them quickly. Our tenants stay for a long time, and they like living in them. And you're going to see over the next few years more and more local zoning codes start loosening up and allowing duplexes by right on single family lots. So there's going to be a big opportunity to build these and hold them as rental units or sell them. So, and the final reason why I like duplexes is because architecturally they fit into existing neighborhoods as part of infill development much better than larger apartment buildings. You know, I've built them detached, multiple architectural styles, including historic and modern, and I've built them attached. So in this picture, it's actually 4 rental units. It's 1 duplex on a separate lot attached to another duplex on a separate lot. Same thing here, right? So that's actually 4 rental units, 2 duplexes. So again, big fan of these. You should be watching this video if you're thinking of building and are looking at land to purchase, or if you already own some land and want to make sure it makes sense to build on it. I'm going to show you how, and obviously I'm going to use Rehab Valuator software because that's what we use for our development business, as do thousands of other developers. So I'm going to show you how to use the software and how to do analysis if you already own this land. And I'm going to show you some cool tricks that we've developed internally in our business that help us get financing as well. All right, so in this video, I'm going to show you how to make sure you're not overpaying for land, how to make sure it makes sense to build in the first place, how to structure your financing, and then how to look at numbers when you already own the land, and a pretty ninja way we get 100% construction funding. Okay, so financial metrics. Before I dive into the software, the financial metrics that we pay attention to when deciding whether it makes sense to build, right? Number 1 is sweat equity. When I build this project and when I'm done paying for everything, am I actually creating wealth on my balance sheet? So if something is going to be worth 100, I want to be able to pay 20 for land, 50 for construction, be all into it for 75 to 80, so that I am creating wealth through construction. Sweat equity is calculated as future value of what you're going to build minus all of your costs, land costs, construction costs, and all of your soft costs. And so if there's a 15 to 20% figure there, then you're creating pretty good sweat equity. Then the next thing I look at is if I leave cash in this deal, given my permanent financing, how much cash am I going to leave in this deal? How much cash am I tying up for the long term in this deal? And then if I am tying up cash, what kind of return is that cash going to earn? So I'm going to show you how to calculate easily all of these things. So sweat equity is basically driven by what you pay for land. The better you are at sourcing land cheap, and I released a video recently on 7 different ways we find cheap off-market land deals, and I'll see if I can link to it below here. But sweat equity is driven right now primarily by how good you are at sourcing land below market. You can control construction costs, you can control cost of financing, you can control what you pay for land. Cash tied up in the deal is driven by the max leverage, and I'll show you how to calculate that. How much debt can your property support on a permanent basis versus what does it cost to buy the land and build it? That's going to tell you how much cash you have to leave in the deal. And then cash on cash return is going to be driven by how much cash you're tying up in a deal and by market rents. Is this property going to generate sufficient enough rents in the market in order to earn me a good enough cash on cash return on the cash that I'm leaving tied up in this deal? And again, I'll show you how to calculate all of this in a minute. So let's look at an example. You found a piece of land and it's being marketed for $60,000, and you want to figure out if it makes sense to buy it and build a duplex on it. All right, so let's go. All right, so I'm going to log into my Rehab Valuator premium account, and I'm going to click Start New Deal, and I'm going to put in the address of this piece of land. So I'm going to start typing 113 North 32nd. We're going to use this as an example. Now I'm going to click Get Data, and all the information for this deal is going to populate here. And I'm going to click Save. So now I'm on my input screen. The very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to switch here from rehab to construction, because this is a new construction deal. And I'm going to put in the asking price for this piece of land, which is $60,000. The next thing I'm going to do, and anytime you're doing this type of analysis, I always want to start with the end in mind. So there's 2 exit strategies here. One is flip, one is rent. I'm going to click over to rent. And what I want to figure out is what will be the as-built value of this duplex when I'm finished with it. Now, I'm going to click here at Calculate, and the software is going to allow me to calculate it based on cap rate and income or sales comps. Now, this is a duplex, so duplexes will appraise based on comps. So I'm going to click Sales Comps here, and the software is going to pull up comparable sales. As you can see, they're very tightly geographically concentrated, but it's going to give me a range of property types. And what I want to do is I want to hit here, and let's look at apartments, right? Because these are going to be mostly duplexes, some are triplexes. Now, the one thing I want to do is I want to go in here and I need to determine how big is my duplex going to be. And the duplexes that I like to build are typically around 2,400 square feet. Each apartment is about 1,200 square feet, 2-bedroom, 2-bath units. That's what I like to build. That's what I want to build here. So I'm going to look at my comps, and I'm going to filter out, I'm going to sort them based on dollar per foot, and I'm going to filter out some of the outliers. So 527, anything around $500 a foot in my market, I know is not right. There is something else going on with these sales where this just doesn't make sense. And I know my neighborhood, and I'm going to get rid of this comp as well because it's just in a much better location. So I'm going to get rid of 352, but I'm also going to get rid of the lower outliers. I know that anything that's sold for $100 a foot was not new construction, and neither was $141 a foot. And so I'm gonna get rid of the high and low outliers, and what I'm left with is these 4 comps and the projected as-built value of around $569,000. So I'm gonna click Use ABV, and I'm gonna populate it into my hold right here. Now, what I can do on top of this is obviously go and do deeper research on each one of these comps and make sure that they're comparable to what I'm going to build. But this roughly gives me an idea of what my property will appraise for. And if I want to be conservative, I'm going to go ahead and scale this back to $560,000. So that's what it's going to be worth. Then the next thing I want to do is figure out how much income this property is going to generate when it's built. I'm going to click on Enter Operating Income, and I'm going to say there's going to be 2 apartments here, 2 bedrooms, 1,200 square feet each. Now, this defaults to a monthly rent, but I don't know at this point what they're going to rent for. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click Comps, and now the software is going to pull up 2-bedroom rental comps for me. Voila. Here you go. Lots of 2-bedroom comps in the neighborhood. And again, I'm going to filter these down, right? I've got ability here to say, okay, I only want to look at apartments that are roughly 1,000 square feet to 1,400 square feet. And I want to look at something that's got 2 baths at least. And I want to look at something, distance is pretty good. So there you go. There's my 4 remaining comps. There are 2 bedrooms, 2 baths. And we can get rid of 2.5 baths here. And they're roughly similar size. So my average dollar per foot here is $1.57. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my inputs and I'm going to say 1,200 square feet times $1.57 a foot is roughly $1,900 a month in rent. And I'm going to click Update. And now I need to project my operating expenses. I'm going to say 8% management fee, about $70 a month in insurance. My real estate taxes are going to be per year closer to, so if I think it's going to be worth $560,000, I'm going to take the county tax rate and I'm going to apply it $560,000 times 0.012. So it's 1.2%. Right? So my real estate taxes I am projecting will be per year $67.20. And I'm going to add some additional expenses, repairs and maintenance. Even though it's new construction, I'm going to have some repairs and maintenance expenses. So let's say $150 a month, and I'm going to plug another $150 a month into reserves. All the utilities are going to be paid for by the tenants, so I've got nothing there for that. And then maybe let's put some landscape maintenance here of $25 a month. And I'm going to click Update. So a good reality check is my operating expenses are roughly 1/3 of my operating income, right? So 3,800 divided by 1,259, it's exactly 3 times. So my operating expenses are about 33% of my operating income, and that's a fairly conservative assumption here. I can probably scale back these operating expenses some if I want. But so now I have the net operating income that this property will generate. So here's the important part. From here, I can now determine how much permanent debt this property can support. So I'm going to say, yes, we're going to refi into this into permanent financing at, I think 7% right now is a good mortgage rate, 20-year amortization, and I'm going to put no closing costs here because my construction loan will roll over into my permanent loan. So if I try to borrow 80% of my value here, my loan is going to be $448,000. But given this income, I can go back here and see it's only 0.73 debt coverage ratio. Now, I'm going through this quick. This assumes you understand this terminology. If you don't, there's a longer video that I referenced in the beginning of this training video that you should watch that goes into all of this in much greater detail. But what I need to do is I need to scale back my permanent debt until I hit at least $1.25 here, 1.25 debt coverage. So let's go to 60%. Nope, 50%. Nope, still not there. 45%. Okay, now I'm at 130. Let's go back to, let's go to 47%. There you go. So now, in order to hit debt coverage of 1.25 at a 7% rate and 20-year amortization, I can borrow roughly 47% of the as-built value. So my permanent loan will be $263,000. So now what I need to do is I need to figure out what this thing is going to cost me to build. So as you can see, we're going backwards, okay? And one of the things I want to do is I want to go back and scale back my assumptions here a little bit, because my operating expenses should be closer to 30% of income instead of 33%. So this will allow me to borrow a little bit more money. So now I can go 50%, 48, 49. There you go. So now I can borrow $271,600. So now we're going to go backwards. Let's go back here and click on construction budget. And there's two ways in this software in which I can enter my projected construction costs. I can just do it as a lump sum, right? If I don't know this market really well, I'm just going to use a ballpark dollar per foot in construction in order to estimate costs. So 2,400 square feet times $135 a foot, $324,000 to build this. Now, alternatively, I can go to detailed input. In our software, now I can build out a detailed budget myself here, or in our software, you can preload a duplex new construction template with a full scope of work and some ballpark costs that you will still need to verify in your own market. But I can simply go in here and I can say 2 units. I can enter some of these takeoffs. 160 linear feet of the foundation, 1,200 square feet of the foundation, 24 windows. And as you can see, as I fill out these quantities, the budget will adjust and move up, right? 30 interior doors, roof, etc., etc. Okay, but for now, let's go back to quick lump sum. And we will just leave it at $324,000. And I'm going to click update. I'm going to zero out my holding costs because those are assumed in my budget. And so now I know before financing, my total cost basis is going to be $385,000. But it's going to be worth $560,000. That's a pretty great deal. My total cost basis is only 69% of as-built value. That means I'm creating 30% in sweat equity here. That's phenomenal. And as you can see, according to this, I'm going to leave $114,000 in cash tied up in this deal. It's going to cash flow clean $535 a month with a 5.6% cash and cash return. So now this is assuming that I build it with cash and then I refi into permanent financing, right? This is what the end result will look like. Now, what this tells me is a couple of things. What this tells me so far is that, yes, I can pay $60,000 for this land. The as-built value is high enough to justify construction. The market rents are high enough to justify construction. I just need to make sure that I have this much cash that I can leave in the deal, and it's going to generate, look, I mean, $270 per door in cash flow clean, it's good enough for me, right? A 5.6% cash and cash return is nothing incredible, but it's a good starting point for me. I'm going to hold this duplex for a long time. This is good enough because on top of this, I'm going to get amortization. I'm going to get depreciation. And my cash flow is going to grow each and every single year. So this tells me that, yeah, it makes sense to build and I can do this deal. Now, there are things that I can do to sweeten this deal up. The first thing I'm going to do to get a full picture of what my financials look like is I'm actually going to turn on my short-term construction financing. And I'm going to click and select that the financing is going to be based on as-built value. And I'm going to take this and put it here so that my construction amount is the same as my permanent amount, right? So basically I'm figuring out what I can borrow on a permanent basis. And then I'm going to go to my local bank, and this is the same amount that they're going to give me for construction right here. But now that I've got short-term financing, and I'm going to select 6 months to build and then another 2 months to lease. But now that I've got my short-term financing here, it increases my costs. So now my original money that I'm tying up in the deal goes up to $128,000 with a 5% cash-on-cash return. Why is that? Because now I have interest to pay for 6 months at 8.5%, and I've got some origination and discount points I have to pay on the short-term loan side. So, do we still like it at 5% cash-on-cash return? Well, here's a couple of things that we can do. One, I can go and I can negotiate this deal down to $50,000 for land. My cash-on-cash is now 5.4%. Maybe I can go to my lender and I can say, hey, I need, in this market, given that construction costs are fairly expensive, I need to be able to get 25% 25-year amortization on my permanent debt. Now look what happens when I go from 20, pay attention to this number. Look what happens when I go from 20 to 25. Well, my debt coverage just went up to 1.38 because my payment went down. So one of two things happens. My payment goes down, my cash flow goes up, and my cash-on-cash return goes up. But this also means that I can actually borrow more money. So I'm going to say, okay, at 25-year amortization, I can borrow $53.5% of value, which drives down my money tied up on the deal to only $90,000 with a 7% cash-on-cash return. Well, that's pretty good. That's great. So 25-year amortization makes a big difference. What else can I do? Maybe I can go and I can value engineer this project down, and I can save some money on construction. So now maybe my budget is only $319,000. My total cash is now only $85,000 a deal with a 7.4 cash-on-cash return. So there is a bunch of levers you can pull on these deals in order to improve your numbers. But doing this kind of analysis is absolutely crucial before you even make an offer on the land. So that's your starting point. Now, here's what to do if you already own the land. If you already own the land, what I'm going to suggest to you is to create two separate versions of this deal. One deal will be the internal model where you model the true cost basis of the land. So let's say you bought this land a long time ago and basically paid nothing for it. Or maybe you carved off this land from another property so it cost you nothing. Just as an extreme example, you're going to put 0 here, and in your internal model, the true numbers look like this. Because you're getting the land for free, you're only needing to come up with $33,000 to make up the difference between your construction budget and how much you can borrow. So in reality, you're only going to have $33,000 in cash out of pocket with a 19% cash-on-cash return. That's your internal model. But what you're going to do now, and actually go in here, go into the property info, and save this as internal model, and click save. But now you're going to click here and click clone deal, and you're going to call this bank model. Because what you want to do is bring this land, you're bringing this land as equity into your deal instead of cash. and you own this land free and clear, and let's say the land is actually worth $100,000. Today's market value of this land is $100,000. So what you're going to do is you're going to come to a bank that's going to fund construction for you. You're going to say, I own this land free and clear. It's worth $100,000, and $100,000 is what I'm bringing as equity into this deal. What that's going to do is allow you to fund most of your construction with very little additional cash that you have to inject into the deal. And so from here, you're going to go to reports, and you're going to create a construction and perm loan funding presentation, and then present to the bank. And I'll just show you what this looks like. And this is what you're going to show to the bank. It's going to be worth $560. Land is worth $100. Here are my construction costs. And I'm looking to borrow this much. Because what the bank is going to do is they're going to say, we will lend you up to 1.25 debt coverage. But also, there's going to be a max loan to cost that they will give you. And so being able to show them that, hey, I'm bringing this much equity into the deal is going to satisfy your lender. So 2 separate models, one internal and one bank model that shows the full value of the land. At the end of the day, your maximum leverage is going to be dictated right now by the debt coverage. So no matter how much you actually own the land for, the most you can borrow is this much on a permanent basis and for construction. Leave me comments. Leave me your questions below. Anything that's not clear, I'm going to answer it in the comments. And again, I'm going to link to a much more in-depth video that goes through this entire process in much more detail if you need to become more familiar with these concepts. So make sure you watch the longer training video here. All right. And again, subscribe. If you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We've got a lot of development content here, and I'm releasing more and more. Again, leave me your feedback, questions, anything that was unclear. If you enjoyed this video, if everything made sense, any questions you have, I'll answer in the comments, and then share this. All right. And that's it. Thank you for watching.